Okay, so let's put everything together and let's get going with our drawing. I'm going to create a folder to house my lines. Let me close this folder temporarily. I'm going to create another folder to hold my circles. I'll create another folder to house my quadratics. And I'll create one final folder to house my lines that form the right-angled triangles. And because I am picky, let me capitalize everything, even though it's not necessary. Okay, I'm ready to get up and running. So I have my sketch in front of me. You should have your sketch in front of you. I didn't have to change my default viewing window, but if you need to change your default viewing window, you can adjust these different parameters here. So let's start with my circle. I'm going to hit the enter sign from inside of my folder. And I know my equation is x squared plus y squared. So x, if you hold shift and the number 6 button, that's how you can enter exponents. So I'll put an exponent 2. And then once I'm done inputting my exponent, I can hit the, the right keyboard, not keyboard, the right button, this button here. And that'll bring me down, plus y, again, shift and number 6 to input an exponent of 2. And then hit the right key on your keyboard. And then it should equal my radius squared. So my radius was 4. 4 squared would be 16. There's my circle. I can close my folder, get that out of the way. And now I'm going to move on to my square. So that's going to be part of my lines. If you remember from my sketch, I had a square that looks something like this. So enter to make my line part of my folder. And my equation is going to be y equals x plus 15. I'm going to have to restrict my line between these two values. So I'm going to restrict my x values so that they're between negative 15 and 0. So remember, start with your curly brackets. My x values have to be greater than or equal to negative 15 and less than or equal to positive 15. Whoa. You might notice here that my x values, I set them to be less than or equal to positive 15, which is why they're going all the way here. I should correct that and make it 0. That looks much better. I'm going to go ahead and put my second line here from there to there. So that's very similar to my first line, except I just have a negative reciprocal slope because it's a perpendicular line. My y-intercept is still 15. And my restrictions now are going to be between 0 and positive 15. So my x values have to be greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 15. Now, one issue is that this equation is not part of my lines folder, so I have to hold it and drag it up, so that way it is part of that folder now. Let's go ahead and put the other two lines there. So my next one is going to be y equals x minus 15. And my restrictions for this one are between 0 and positive 15. And I have another line, y equals negative x minus 15, with restrictions between negative 15 and 0. Okay, so my lines are done. I can close that folder, get them out of the way. My circle is done. My lines intersecting at a right angle are done. I also have a quadrilateral because I have a square. Let's go ahead and work on my quadratics. I figured out on my my drawing, my rough copy when I was brainstorming, that the equation of my quadratic is going to be y equals negative 0.0625, x plus 14, x minus 14. And I've chosen to restrict it between negative 14 and positive 14 and x. I have to basically create a version of this that is reflected across the x-axis. So I'm going to copy this equation, and I'm just going to change my y value, or sorry, my a value, so that it opens upwards instead of downwards. So I have changed this slightly from my brainstorming. Before, when I was brainstorming, I had this vertex meet at this point of intersection. But I've shifted it a little bit. You can make these creative changes as you're going about as well. Let me close the quadratics folder. The last thing is these connections there. So on my graph, it's between, so for example, my line starts at negative 4 comma 4 and goes all the way to intersect somewhere up there. So why don't we start that with a vertical line, so x equals negative 4. So I'll have my line go between a y value here of 11, and I'll stop it down there at 4. So my y values have to be greater than 4, but less than 11. And then I also want a connection from here to somewhere here. So that's going to be a horizontal line. If you remember, the equation of horizontal lines is y equals, and whatever value it goes through on your y-axis. Similarly, I'm going to restrict this between negative 11 and negative 4 for x. Oops, sorry. Should be negative 11 and negative 4. There we go. So that's one piece there. Let me create this other side here. So let's go x equals positive 4. So vertical line going through 4. And let me restrict it between y values of 4 and 11. Let's do the same thing. Y equals 4. Let me restrict it between x values of 4 and 11. You see the process here. I think I'm going to end it off there, but essentially down here at the bottom, you want to continue that as well. And you can see my images within my viewing window. And in the next video, I'm going to show you guys how you can get this printed.